Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jeff, and today I'm going to be your host. And this is going to be a very strange episode. In this episode, this is the Global Wellness HQ podcast, but in today's episode, I am going to show you how to launch a client getting podcast in 30 minutes or less. Now, I know you're thinking this might be fantastic or this might be a little bit unreasonable. I'm literally going to walk you through it. So, there's a few assumptions. And first, I want to talk about why. And I don't think enough people talk about why. But the reality is, I believe that the fastest and best and easiest way to grow any business is through a podcast. Now, that only works if you have the mindset of you're here to serve and if you genuinely care about your clients, your customers, patients, whatever you call them, but you're willing to fall in love with your clients and their problems and find solutions. So that's what I like about a podcast. It's a great way for me to reach as many people as possible while adding as much value as possible so that we can skip past all of those sales processes and sales cycles and get straight to onboarding new clients. So that's my expectation. And I would say that for any local business that's looking to grow, any global business that's looking to grow, my number one strategy is the podcast. And I just want to be clear that the podcast to me is a networking tool and it's a community building tool. So you want to build your brand, you want to build your identity. I'm not here to teach a global conglomerate how to launch a podcast. I'm guessing you've got a team for that. What I'm here is to teach the solopreneur who is looking to grow their business and they're trying to network, they're trying to find time in their day. Maybe they do go to networking events or maybe they wish they could but they don't have time. What I'm going to introduce to you is the podcast. And what I love about the podcast is it allows me to meet great people and easily share them with my network. So that's what we're talking about. And just to be clear, for a small business, if you're just getting started and you're saying, I don't have time for a podcast or I don't want to commit the resources, you'll see here I've got some tools listed and these prices are rough. They're based on my recollection. I don't haven't gone and checked the prices, but I can tell you that three of these have a cost of less than $20 a month, and three of them are free. So the big cost for you is the time you spend doing this, getting set up, getting going. And I want to minimize that time. So my goal for the podcast is if you're going to do it, you do it to get clients. So I'm going to talk about assumptions in a second. But the biggest thing I want to say is if you're a small business and you're looking for a little growth, do 12 episodes and then wait, see what results you get from it. If you're not getting clients after 12 episodes, you want to tweak and maybe do something different, or maybe you stop doing it. But 12 is the magic number where you either realize, yes, this is amazing and it's for me, or you realize, I don't want to do this anymore. So, for anybody who's thought about starting a podcast or who's in a role and they'd like to grow their business, by the way, this can apply to salespeople as well. If you're a sales professional, and you want to grow your pipeline, if I had to start over tomorrow and do everything again, in fact, for all of my clients, when they start with me, first thing we do is launch a podcast. If the podcast doesn't work for you, that tells me that there's other things wrong and we need to tweak them first. But a podcast is a really good way. I call it pressure testing the business, but you either sink or swim based on the podcast. So the podcast is a good diagnostic tool because it starts a lot of conversations. So I'm going to share a few of my assumptions. The number one is that you have an existing business or role. You're not completely brand new. You can do this if you're brand new, but it's faster if you already have an existing business. But if you are just starting out, this advice applies as well. So the next assumption is you know exactly who you serve. And what I mean is, if you think you serve everyone on the planet, I hate to break it to you, you serve no one. So you need to be crystal clear on exactly who you serve. And there's no such thing as too narrow a niche. The more narrow you get, the better you can say this works or it doesn't. So, for example, if you are a clothing store and you wanted to do a podcast, I would pick your best segment in there, whether it's men, women, boys, and then go into sort of an age range, teenagers, 20s, 30s, 40s, but pick the one group that you really, really love to serve, you really want more of. You can scale it after you've proven it to yourself. But people tell me, oh, I tried to serve everyone with the podcast and I got nothing. Exactly. So you want to be laser, laser, laser focused. Just as a joke, once I said I would do a podcast for left handed dentists. It turns out that's a real thing. So you can't be too specific because you're going to learn, you're going to test and measure. Now, the next thing is you need to be really clear what your offer is. So you need to know exactly what you do for those you serve. And by the way, it can't be a long list, at most 3 things. So, what is your number one thing that you want to sell? So you can see that it's hyper, hyper specific. Number two, or the next assumption is you're willing to talk to key strategic partners. So the nuance here is that for your podcast, your audience is the people you would like to have as clients. Your guests are people who also serve those clients. So, for example, I have a friend with a podcast with golf. His audience is golfers. His guests that he interviews for the show are people who make money from golf. So, key strategic partners make money from the same audience that you do. And the reason we do that, if you go one to one and you're trying to reach people in your audience, it becomes very time specific. It's very time draining. It takes a lot of effort. Whereas if you talk to strategic partners, it's very leveraged. You want to have guests on your show who might have hundreds, if not thousands, of your ideal clients. Now, the next assumption sometimes trips people up, but you have to have capacity to add clients. If you're a solopreneur and you're working 80 hours a week, I'm not going to even suggest this, because if you get more clients, it means you end up working 100 hours a week. What I mean is you should have a team, you should have systems, you should have processes, you have room to scale. And by the way, if you're a salesperson for a large organization, a podcast is a really great way to meet your quota without pounding the pavement or, God forbid, cold calling. Now, you should at least have a decent camera and a microphone. People who come from the Mac world, the MacBook I know has pretty decent microphone and camera built in. I don't know about the Microsoft. I think the Surface has decent stuff. I always buy an external camera because it's a little higher quality and I can control it. And I always use a headset so that I can control the audio very well. And the last thing, you should have a quiet place for interviews. There's nothing worse than trying to get to know somebody, having a conversation, and there's a bunch of noise in the background. I once interviewed somebody for a podcast. I'm not kidding. They were sitting at their desk in their office while construction renovation was going on. And they said, sorry, I don't have anywhere else to be. We rescheduled because the hammers were driving me nuts. I don't know how they could focus. So those are the assumptions. Now I'm going to talk about the tools, and you're welcome to use whatever tool you want. You'll note there's no affiliate link. I get no benefit from sharing this, but the tools I use Zoom for video conferencing. It is my go-to for everything. And I think I pay about 15 US a month. I'd be lost without it. It's got great, it fits in my workflow. If you have another tool of choice, my only comment is it's got to be easy for people to get in, and it's got to be easy to record. So those are my two big things. And Zoom ticks those boxes. So and it's good audio and video quality. Now, I use Canva. It is a graphic design tool. In fact, I created this little presentation for you in Canva, and you can get away with the free version or you can use a paid. I think I pay about 15 US a month. Now, Calendly is my non-negotiable one for me. It's the booking scheduling app, and this is where you're going to set up your show questions, you're going to do your intake, and it's going to integrate with your calendar. You can use whatever tools you've already got. I'm going to show you Calendly because that's the tool I've selected. Now, I get a lot of questions. People say, well, what about this tool? What about that tool? I'm going to tell you, unless something is going to change my world in ways I've never thought possible, I'm not going to change laterally from one tool to the next because there's something to be said about a tool that I know how to use inside and out. Now, if somebody comes out with a magic AI scheduling app that finds people's calendars and puts them in mine automatically, maybe I'll look at it. But for now, Calendly is the one I use. Now, for my video production, I use a tool called Shotcut, and I'll do a separate video on that if there's enough interest. I use Shotcut to edit my videos, and I love it because it's free, it's open source, but more importantly, it's got all the functionality I need. You might think you need something fancier, more advanced. That's on you. You need to figure it out. But Shotcut, it's literally drag and drop. And within about 5 minutes, I can turn a raw interview into a produced episode. So Shotcut is my favorite. I've had many people try to put me in other directions. I have not seen anything that compares to Shotcut for simplicity and ease of use. Now, social media, that's entirely up to you. I will make it clear to you, pick the social media that your audience is on. So the people that you want to work with, that you want for clients, you're going to promote podcast episodes there. And you're going to be on whatever social media your potential guests are. So as an example, I'm business to business. My entire audience is on LinkedIn and all of my strategic partners are on LinkedIn. So I only have to be on LinkedIn. Now, maybe your business to consumer, your audience is going to be on Facebook and possibly your key strategic partners are going to be there, but they're also likely to be on LinkedIn. So you need to be on both platforms. And then I use YouTube. It's got a great algorithm. It's very helpful. It's got a lot of content, but it's dead easy to share videos. So YouTube is my go-to. So let's jump into the actual steps, and I'll do a walkthrough video later. I just want you to focus on the high level and then we'll get into the details. But the very first step is you want to write the synopsis. And I'll cheat just a little. Actually, let's go through this. So this is one of my podcasts. Oh, wait, this is one I'm launching. So this is actually perfect. So what I do is I write the synopsis, and basically I want to be clear who I'm interviewing and who would want to listen. So you can see I say who I interview is our experts, and who listens is anyone looking to integrate wellness into their lives. So this is a really simple template. I created it in Canva. The elements, my logo's here, my podcast name is here. I have this graphic, and then here's my synopsis. So that's really easy to do. As you can see, creating the cover art, basically you go down to photos, you find a picture that you like, and I just drag it over, and if you hold it in the right place, Canva turns it into a background. So that's a potential background. And then I just add text box to put this here. I added a text box to put this here. And I put a blank box behind so that you can read the text. And then I just dragged and dropped my logo here. So that's how easy it is to actually create cover art. It doesn't need to be fancy. And what I want to stress here, you can complicate the hell out of this later. You can make it as fancy and as pretty and as nice as you want. But for now, we're getting it set up quickly so that we can see if it works for us. If it doesn't work for us, there's no point spending thousands of dollars on a graphic designer, things like that. So just think about good enough. This is the minimum viable product, not the perfect product you'll do later. Now, Calendly is really, really easy to set up. And I'll just show you some of the key things of mine. So you need to create an event. And basically, what I do is I put the description of the show and I put my show questions. Here's the questions you're going to get asked, and a little bit of an overview and a reminder to have a microphone and a high quality camera. It's amazing how many people show up and don't know how to be on Zoom. And then you set your when can people book. So I have my time and I have it integrated with my calendar. And then this is the big aha for me is if we just go straight to um, questions, we can ask the questions we need right here. Um, this is in lieu of anything complicated. So all you have to do at the end, once you've set it up, I put the questions I want, and this is abbreviated because I've got another program that does it. I've evolved beyond the basic, but basically you want to ask them for their bio, you want to ask them their contact details, and you want to ask them, are they comfortable on Zoom? And I always ask for a backup phone number in case there's a problem. But that's really, really how simple it can be. And what I like about Calendly is you can add reminders and confirmations, things like that. I don't get too hung up on that. I usually do the top three, and that's about it. Now, YouTube channel, I'm not going to walk you through this because YouTube does training way better than Jeff ever could. So if you just go to Google and search how to set up a Google channel, the Google support team has created some videos. You can create a personal channel. You can create a channel with a business. I do all of mine as channel with a business, and I have multiple YouTube channels managed under one account. So that makes life easier. Um, as you grow, just a little tip, you can add a virtual assistant or an admin person to your YouTube channel and to your Canva Canva account. That way you don't have to do all the work somebody else can. Okay, so that's how hard it is to set up a YouTube channel. Basically, you need a logo and I think it's a panel, a rectangular image, and that's it. It's very simple. Zoom is really, really simple. You enter your credit card, you'll get access to Zoom, and there's a meetings. I just use my standard room. So I have one link, and all of my guests get that. If you want every guest to have a different link, you can actually set it up in Calendly to create a Zoom link every time. And I will show you this very, very briefly because I don't think everybody knows this. But in Calendly, you can easily integrate, and you just click on integrations at the top and you look for, so I use Google Chrome, so you can find the Google Calendar, sorry. I can integrate there, and way at the bottom is Zoom, so I can integrate there. So there's a lot of easy integrations, and literally it's you click and you follow it through. So take the time to integrate. So what happens is if somebody fills in your Calendly, it goes and looks in your calendar, makes sure you have the time available. It books it in your calendar, books it in theirs, sends them the Zoom link. It is amazing. Now, the next piece, I will work on some more trainings. I can't cover everything in a quick, but basically I use whatever tool I'm comfortable with. So I guarantee you already know some key strategic partners, some people who already reach your clients. If you don't, you're going to have to do a little work there. but use whatever means you're comfortable. So if you're comfortable on the phone, use the phone, use email, social media, use social media. And all I do is I reach out and say, hey, so and so, it's been a while since we chatted. I looking to grow my business. I realize that podcasting is going to be very interesting and useful for me. I would love to feature you as a guest on my podcast and introduce you to my network. Would you be open to learning more? And I promise you they'll say yes, no, or I don't know. And if they say yes, great. You send them your Calendly link. If they say no, you say thank you. Do you happen to know anybody who would be a good guest? And if they say maybe, just say, I'm just getting launched. And be honest. Don't lie. Just say I'm just launching it. I'm interviewing my favorite people first. But that's it. It doesn't need to be complicated. It's not a big, long ask. I know some people, they write 3-page emails. Don't just would you be open to it? Yes or no? And by the way, I've had in the hundreds of people I ask, I've had 2 people tell me exactly where to go and how to get there. I just say thank you and wish them well because clearly they're not somebody I want to talk to on the show. But the key is start with people you already know because they're the ones that are going to be comfortable with you. You're going to be comfortable with them. You want to practice. Um, then you record the interviews. That's easy. Zoom does most of the work for you. And then afterwards, like I said, I can't get into the production today, but I will. You produce the interviews, and basically you're turning it from the raw video into a polished podcast with maybe some show notes, maybe not. It's up to you. And then the last piece is promote interviews. And I do that really, really simple. I take the so this is what I do. I create a thumbnail. So in this case, this is Carrie Henry. I interviewed her. I put her face. I put her name here, and I put this thumbnail up on my LinkedIn, and then I have a link to the YouTube channel where they can watch the video to the specific video, and it's that simple. And on LinkedIn, I'll tag somebody. I'll say, "Hey, Carrie, thank you for being on the show," and that's how we sort of get to know each other. But I also then, and this is the important piece most people don't do, I'll introduce other people in my network. I'll say, "Hey, you need to watch this podcast episode. I think you and Carrie have something to discuss." So that's my simple thing. And you'll notice I'm not trying to be globally famous. I'm just trying to help a local business grow. And for the record, I believe that any kind of business with any product or service can be a podcast because you always have a perfect prospect, a dream client that has problems you can solve. So just think about your best clients, and I do mean focus on your best. What challenges could you solve for them that even if it's not something you get paid to solve, they'll still appreciate it? Because if you're in the business of solving problems, they're going to come to you, and it's great because they don't care about price, they care that you're going to take care of them. So that's how you promote. Now, I'm going to share my goals, and this is a conversation I usually have when I'm planning a podcast with somebody to set it up. My first question is, why are you doing the podcast? The assumption is you want to earn more money, you want to close more deals, you want to get more business. But in the bigger picture, how are you going to help people with the podcast? And so you want to be really clear, who do you serve? That's your audience. Um, you want to be really clear who your guests will be. Those are your key strategic partners. And I always ask the question, how is the world a better place because of this podcast? And if you have a decent webcam and microphone, you're going to go further, and you should have a quiet place. So I'm going to repeat those 2 things. But that is, in a nutshell, how to launch a client getting podcast in 30 minutes or less. Now, if you comment below, if you want to see me actually do this, I will happily do it. I have a podcast I'm launching next week, and I'm happy to record the process for training, but I'm only going to do it if it adds value to your world. So, again, how does this make your world better place?